A lot of open source companies focus on popularity, but don't do a great job at monetization, right? Other closed source companies monetize well, but they don't get the same user love and developer love that open source communities get, right?
Yeah.
So how do you kind of thread the needle between the two? How do you keep the open source community vibrant and growing while still monetizing it enough to get to 2.5 billion at 65% growth and growing?
Our company was born in open source. 7 founders, all PhDs from Berkeley, invented Spark. At our core is open source. If you looked at traditional open source business models, it was a lot about how do you charge for services, support, those kind of things. I think Databricks, one of the innovations we did was how do you actually monetize open source as
Yeah.
part of a cloud service, right? So, the early founders had a great vision around, okay, we're going to build a cloud service. We're going to build differentiation into that. And a couple things really happened. One, we started in data science and machine learning, which was a, pretty open area, I think, in the market. And we developed, some proprietary like notebooks, those kind of technologies. In addition, we have now an open source kind of innovation factory, right? So then we did ML Flow and Delta and all these other projects. And so it's really the combination of all these things that give you kind of an end-to-end managed data intelligence platform that matters, right? Instead of just one, say, open source project. And so I think how we've built out that monetization, and I think a lot of other open source companies are trying to do similar things in terms of building a cloud service. So that's a big part of our innovation.
The topic of the day here is AI and generative AI in particular. And there seem to be two camps, one that go after the OpenAI, the Anthropics of the world, that are closed source models that have spent billions of dollars in building an artificial general intelligence model. And there's a bunch of enterprises that are going after Llama and Facebook and Mistral and other open source models that Databricks supports. And I think we're on both sides of the equation. What are you finding? What kind of companies, enterprises need open source versus closed source? And how do they evaluate, the pros and cons of those approaches?
I think early days in this market, for sure, like, OpenAI and ChatGPT kind of captured everyone's mind share, mostly from the consumer market, in my opinion. And obviously, Anthropic has strong relationships with AWS, OpenAI with Azure. So, a lot of the enterprises we talk to start experimentation there just because they have mind share. But when you start to look at, okay, what's it going to take to put that into production and what are the costs look like? I don't actually believe that one private model that can do everything is going to be the way enterprises adopt AI. I think it's going to be more purpose-specific models that are trained on your data. We actually call that data intelligence. And that's how, the things you have to worry about, like security, governance, and lineage, and all the regulations are going to come out. Like 3 years from now, some financial services company is going to say, hey, your bot recommended I buy this stock and they're bankrupt now. Like, what do I do about that, right? So you're going to have to prove all those things to governments. And so I think there's a lot of things that say, you're going to go open source. The performance is now, pretty similar, and the cost profile is way different, and the ability to control these models, that's the biggest thing I've seen.
You feel these models are good enough on the open source front? They're catching up to the closed source models?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the performance, the quality, all those kind of things, I think there'll continue to be innovation there. But again, I believe that kind of small language models and compound AI systems are really what, versus just one model. Like if I'm trying to answer customer support questions for my company, I don't really care if my model knows who won World War II and what was the strategy, right?
The broader question, though, Ron, and we'll end in this topic, because that is the key debate of the day. Are enterprises ready for GenAI? Because on one hand, there's tens of billions being spent on GPUs and cloud services, or they're investing in the GPU capacity, but I don't hear about like high profile enterprise applications that are powered by GenAI, and you have a first-hand view into what's coming next. So what's your view of how ready is the enterprise market for launching GenAI applications?
I think spending right now will increase, 3-4x over the next year. It's already, billions of dollars, but I think that next shift is going to be around production of these specific use cases. We did a survey on top 400 or 500 customers. I think like 85% are already plan to use AI in production. Like 99% are experimenting with it. And I think this year is going to be a big year in terms of, moving that forward. Depending on the market vertical, like a lot of the financial services companies, some of the healthcare insurance, they're really concerned about security and compliance and those kind of things. So they'll take a little slower, but there's specific teams being allocated to build out AI platforms inside of each one of these enterprises. There's budget where it was kind of one-time budget, and now it's going to be fixed every year budget being allocated to AI. And I believe those are, really key triggers, and we'll see a lot. This will be a big year.